In an age when intellectuals often remain confined to the ivory towers of academia or lost in the noise of ideological extremes, the life of Jules Barthélemy Saint-Hilaire, 1805 to 1895, offers a refreshing reminder of the enduring power of reasoned thought, principled politics, and meaningful education. Born in the early 19th century, a time of revolution, philosophical ferment, and expanding empires, Saint-Hilaire managed to span the worlds of classical philosophy and modern politics with unusual grace. A translator of Aristotle, a journalist, a statesman, and a moral educator, he spent his life trying to connect the timeless with the timely. From his extensive translations of Greek philosophy to his political reforms and emphasis on secular ethics, Saint-Hilaire's life was a model of intellectual integrity and public responsibility. His quiet brilliance and measured approach may lack the flash of more revolutionary figures, but they reveal something deeper, a soul committed to thoughtfulness, moderation, and the betterment of society. In this video of his life and work, we draw out key life lessons, principles that remain startlingly relevant in our era of information overload, ideological polarization, and moral confusion. Let us explore what it means to live a life like Jules Barthélemy Saint-Hilaire did, one that brings clarity to thought, conscience to action, and depth to duty. 1. Bridge the gap between ideas and action. In the modern world, the division between thinkers and doers has grown into a chasm. Philosophers speak in classrooms and write books, politicians pass laws and make speeches. Jules Barthélemy Saint-Hilaire saw no reason why these roles should be separate. For him, philosophy was not only a tool for personal contemplation but also a guide for public service. Saint-Hilaire's career path was remarkable because it proved that intellectual integrity and public engagement were not mutually exclusive. As a professor of philosophy and as a journalist, he developed and shared complex ideas with clarity and precision. But he did not stop there. He chose to test his philosophical convictions in the real world, by entering the rough and often morally ambiguous arena of politics. As a deputy and later as a senator during France's Third Republic, Saint-Hilaire applied the ethical ideals he had taught. He championed educational reform, freedom of the press, and secular governance, all grounded in his Aristotelian belief in the cultivation of virtue and reason. His translation of philosophy into policy was neither easy nor always popular, but it showed what is possible when principles meet perseverance. Too often, ideas remain abstract because no one has the courage or discipline to test them in the real world. Saint-Hilaire reminds us that the purpose of thought is action. Theories only matter if they can shape lives, policies, and futures. Life lesson: don't be content to have good ideas. Put them into practice. A life well lived is one where your philosophy becomes your blueprint for daily decisions. True intellectualism is not just what you think, but what you do with your thoughts. 2. Translate wisdom across time and language. Saint-Hilaire is most celebrated for his monumental translations of Aristotle's works into French. These translations were more than academic endeavors, they were acts of cultural preservation and revitalization. In bringing Aristotle to a 19th-century French audience, he demonstrated his belief that the past still has something vital to say, if we learn to listen. Translation, for Saint-Hilaire, was not a mechanical process of word-for-word equivalence. It was a creative and interpretive act. He sought not only to convey Aristotle's terminology but also to transmit the spirit and logic of his ideas. His versions were lauded for their clarity, elegance, and fidelity, a testament to his deep understanding of both the source material and his own audience. He saw ancient philosophy as a living dialogue, not a relic. By breathing new life into Aristotle's ethics, politics, and metaphysics, he invited modern thinkers into a conversation with one of the world's greatest minds. This bridging of time, culture, and language is a powerful act of intellectual empathy. In our digital era, when language changes overnight and attention spans wane, Saint-Hilaire teaches us to pause. He reminds us that the truths of old aren't dead, they're waiting to be reawakened in forms we can understand. Life lesson: be a bridge between the old and the new. Translate not just languages, but values. Make ancient wisdom live again in your world. Great ideas never go out of style, they just wait for someone to carry them forward. 3. Use education to elevate, not indoctrinate. When Saint-Hilaire became Minister of Public Instruction, he brought with him a revolutionary yet rational vision for education. He advocated for a secular, moral education that equipped students to be ethical, free-thinking citizens. He opposed rote memorization and ideological manipulation, preferring a curriculum that nurtured judgment, empathy, and civic virtue. His policies reflected a deep respect for the autonomy of the learner. He believed in encouraging curiosity, critical thinking, and the development of personal conscience. For Saint-Hilaire, education was the foundation of a just and democratic society, not merely a means of producing obedient workers or loyal citizens. He fought to remove clerical control from the schools and replace it with a moral but secular curriculum. He was not hostile to religion, but he strongly opposed its dominance in the classroom. His efforts led to a more rational, inclusive, and liberal educational structure that paved the way for modern secularism in France. Today, when education systems around the world wrestle with polarization, bias, and standardization, his vision is as relevant as ever. True education opens the mind rather than fills it with dogma. Life lesson: education should be a liberation, not a limitation. Teach people to question, to discern, and to care. That is how you elevate a society. When you teach someone to think, you give them the power to change their world. 4. Hold firm to moral responsibility in politics. Saint-Hilaire's political life was grounded in principle. While others chased power for its own sake, he treated political office as a moral calling. His tenure in public service was marked by moderation, fairness, and a deep respect for justice. His political ideals were shaped by classical philosophy, particularly Aristotle's notion of the just mean. He avoided extremism, favored measured reforms, and approached issues with a philosopher's discipline. He believed that laws should cultivate virtue and that leadership required character. During a time of ideological upheaval in France, he remained steady. He promoted democratic reforms and civil liberties, yet resisted the temptations of radical populism. He understood the value of institutions and gradual progress. In times of political chaos, such figures are often overlooked or dismissed as too quiet, too principled. But history remembers Saint-Hilaire for precisely those qualities. He stayed true when others wavered. Life lesson: in politics, the hardest path is often the most ethical one. If you enter public life, do so as a servant, not a master. Stand firm in your values, even when they are unpopular. Integrity isn't loud, but it lasts. 5. Balance reason with conscience. Aristotle's influence on Saint-Hilaire shaped a key insight: ethics is not just about rules or logic. It is about character, balance, and the harmony between reason and emotion. Saint-Hilaire applied this principle to both personal and public life. He avoided the cold rationalism that dominated some Enlightenment thought, just as he avoided the irrational fervor that often accompanied romantic or revolutionary ideologies. He believed in cultivating inner virtue, what Aristotle called phronesis or practical wisdom. This balance helped him navigate complex political and personal decisions. He listened to his conscience without being swayed by sentiment. He applied logic without losing his compassion. The result was a statesman-philosopher who embodied ethical maturity. In our current age of emotional outrage and ideological rigidity, his balance offers wisdom. We must learn to hold complex views, to act deliberately, and to listen to our better angels. Life lesson: think clearly, but also feel deeply. Let your decisions be guided by both logic and love. Wisdom lives where intellect and empathy meet. The best choices are those shaped by a disciplined heart. 6. Live for the long conversation. Saint-Hilaire understood that he was one link in a great chain of thinkers. He didn't try to reinvent the wheel, he refined it, translated it, and passed it on. He was humble before history, knowing that philosophy is a relay race, not a solo sprint. He saw himself not as a revolutionary, but as a steward. His mission was to ensure that the wisdom of Aristotle and other ancient thinkers continue to inform modern life. This respect for intellectual tradition gave his work depth and perspective. Too often today, we dismiss the past as irrelevant or outdated. But Saint-Hilaire shows us that the past can offer profound insights if approached with humility and curiosity. The human condition changes far less than we think. In our era of instant opinions and superficial debate, Saint-Hilaire's approach is grounding. We are not the first to ask life's deepest questions. We owe it to the past to listen, and to the future to respond. Life lesson: be part of something bigger than yourself. Engage with the great questions not to win arguments, but to carry the torch forward. Learn from those who came before so you can leave something meaningful behind. 7. Choose measured progress over revolutionary zeal. Saint-Hilaire believed in change, but not chaos. He supported reforms that were rational, gradual, and humane. He rejected both reactionary stagnation and reckless revolution. He knew the dangers of both extremes. Conservatism that clings blindly to the past, and radicalism that tears down without building back wisely, are equally dangerous. His moderation was courageous, not cowardly. When France was swept by revolutionary fervor, he advocated for reform with responsibility. He worked for laws that improved lives without destabilizing society. His belief in progress was tempered by an understanding of history, complexity, and human frailty. In times when revolution feels seductive, his voice reminds us that not all change is good. Some transformations are loud and shallow, others are quiet and profound. Life lesson: don't confuse speed with depth. The best changes are those that last, and they usually take time, care, and moral clarity. Build with intention, not impulse. 8. Defend secular morality with courage and clarity. Saint-Hilaire's commitment to secularism wasn't about hostility to religion, it was about fairness, reason, and the universality of ethics. He believed that morality must be grounded in human dignity and rational dialogue, not sectarian authority. In our polarized world, where religion and politics often clash destructively, his vision of a morally serious secularism is more relevant than ever. Secular ethics, when done right, is not moral relativism, it is the attempt to find common ground across our differences. Life lesson: a secular mind is not a soulless one. Build moral systems that include everyone, not just those who agree with you. 9. Embrace intellectual humility. Despite his immense learning, Saint-Hilaire never claimed to know everything. His scholarship was marked by humility, openness, and curiosity. He respected other thinkers, admitted uncertainty, and refused to speak where he had not studied. He knew that knowledge is never complete, and that even the wisest minds have blind spots. This humility made him a better scholar, a better teacher, and a better public servant. It allowed him to learn from others, to correct his mistakes, and to grow throughout his life. Today, when loudness often replaces wisdom and arrogance parades as authority, his example stands out. Intellectual humility is not weakness, it is strength rooted in truth. Life lesson: admit what you don't know. Be eager to learn. The truly wise are those who know how much they still have to understand. Humility invites growth, arrogance blocks it. 10. Remember that philosophy is for the living. Though he spent much of his life immersed in ancient texts, Saint-Hilaire never treated philosophy as a museum piece. He saw it as a living practice, a guide to action, character, and public life. Philosophy, for him, was not about retreating from the world, but about engaging it more deeply. It was a tool to build a better self, and, through that, a better society. Life lesson: philosophy is not just for scholars. It is for citizens, friends, parents, and leaders. Use it to live well. Conclusion: the quiet greatness of a thoughtful life. Jules Barthélemy, Saint-Hilaire did not seek fame, but he earned lasting respect. He reminds us that a meaningful life does not have to be dramatic to be powerful. Through quiet diligence, moral clarity, and intellectual grace, he left behind a legacy that still speaks. In his story, we find a call to slow down, think deeply, and live ethically. He asks us to honor truth over trend, conscience over convenience, and wisdom over noise. His life may not make headlines, but it makes sense, in the richest, deepest meaning of that word. And in a world starving for sense, that may be the greatest legacy of all.